T minus 1 minute. T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Own it, own it, own it, Kong. I own it. It did.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
Hey, hey, hey! Welcome, welcome, welcome to Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet where women's wrestling does matter. Of course, I'm your girl, Stephanie Hardy, host and creator of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast and host for Women's Wrestling Talk, and occasional writer. But yeah, we're just going to put that out there right there. Welcome to the NXT 2.0 and the final NXT UK Aftershow. And I am so glad to be joined by my Women's Wrestling Talk sister, host of In Cat We Trust, and all-around super mom, Katrina Blake. How are you?
Hey, everybody. I'm okay. Hectic day, but I am all right. How are you?
I'm doing good, and I'm feeling, a little bit tired from, all the Thursday shenanigans. I get it. But, I am feeling a little bit sentimental because of this, NXT chapter one, NXT chapter being closed, and the other one, being open, after this weekend. Of course, I'm excited about this weekend because we got Clash at the Castle, and then we got NXT Worlds Collide, which we'll get into a little bit later. And of course, personally, my birthday's coming up, and September started today. So it's the greatest month. I will fight you on it, whatever. I'm just excited. So yeah, it's gonna be cool.
Always nice for a birthday month. I'm that way when my birthday's coming up, so I hear you.
Yes, yes. And of course, you can join us in the comments and tell us, of course, what parts of NXT 2.0 and, of course, the final episode of NXT UK resonated with you the most because we have a lot of wrestling to get into when it comes to NXT this weekend and also from these past shows. So we're going to get into it. So, on this episode of NXT 2.0, of course, this was leading up to Worlds Collide, and there's just a lot of stuff going on. But outside of the realm of Worlds Collide, we had this match that started NXT 2.0 off between Apollo Crews and Grayson Waller. And I'm going to let Katrina sort of go into what happened in this match because I had to sort of dip out for a second, so I missed most of it. So Kat is going to get into it.
So yeah, I thought this was a really nice opening to NXT 2.0. For me, it did feel like even though Apollo showcased what he's good at, I do think Grayson Waller kind of was finding weaknesses that Apollo Crews had and tried to like exploit it to an extent. There was a lot of moments I did enjoy with from the match, like this move right here from Apollo, which Apollo, wrestling wise, it's always really entertaining to watch. And so unfortunately, I felt like as good as Apollo Crews was, I did feel like Grayson kind of was out. Like it seemed like he was outmatching him, which surprised me. Honestly, he like outmatched him and like outmaneuvered him most of the matchup. I do think it could have been a little bit more energetic, if that's the right word I want to use. But he did, poke him in the eye, and then he did like a rolling cutter to win the match. Uh, but I was like, it was a good matchup, but I was very surprised with the fact, like, even with Apollo doing like that stuff, I was very surprised that he did not come off with the win. Grayson Waller did do the cutter. He did win the match, and I think this is probably one of his biggest wins so far in WWE. But it was pretty good. I did like the blockbuster that Apollo Crews did. I think he did like a military press as well, which is the move I showed previously. The picture I showed previously, but it was a good match. I just wish it was a little bit more energy, I guess, for starting off NXT 2.0. And again, I was very surprised with Grayson's win, but he did win the match, and so impressive victory to me over Apollo Crews.
That's kind of disappointing to hear. The fact that Apollo Crews actually lost that match, I mean, I understand Grayson Waller is supposed to be the wave of the future, but it's like between those war of words that they had last week and considering Apollo Crews is looking to sort of make more of a splash in NXT, I find it surprising that he didn't have, more of an advantage over him.
Yeah, I thought the same thing too. It was again, I was really surprised by that. I thought it, like, I guess it made Grayson Waller look good, but it also kind of made me like, like, why is it like Apollo usually, even with previous losses he's had in WWE, it wasn't because necessarily he was outmatched necessarily, just might have been like person might have been one step ahead. It was very odd to me, but good win, I guess, for Grayson, but I was surprised with Apollo losing this match.
Yeah, here's hoping that Apollo Crews can, turn everything around for his benefit. Now, of course, in the comments, we have JD wishing me an early happy birthday. Thank you so much. And he also says, Crews strikes me as a guy WWE considers a step above enhancement talent. Oh, that's kind of sad. I mean, I understand being a step above enhancement talent, but at the same time, there's still so much that he has to offer. Like this guy has been a U.S. champion and an Intercontinental champion multiple times, so maybe he can turn it around, and maybe he can step up a little bit more. I hope he can, though, for real. I hope he can turn it around. So moving on, we had a women's tag team match between, of course, the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions Katana Chance and Kaden Carter versus Ivy Nile and Tatum Paxley, who they did defeat in that tournament. Well, was it? No, it wasn't a tournament. Who they did defeat in that match, in the elimination match, in order to win those tag titles. But watching from above was, of course, the team of Toxic Attraction watching in the Toxic Lounge, and you had Gigi and JC Jane watching from above with Mandy Rose watching as well. And it was so weird to see them even after the women's tag team title tournament that they were in, but then had to be pulled from due to Gigi's injury because she it was revealed that she had a concussion. So I was just like, okay, so like, and that really disappointed me because I was hoping they would be able to move a little bit more forward, but they weren't. But they still looked cute and everything watching this match. So this match was pretty good. I enjoyed watching these teams go back to back. I love watching the evolution of Tatum Paxley as a competitor because she is still relatively new, and of course Ivy Nile is of course Miss Diamond Mine, even though we haven't really seen her with the Diamond Mine since they've been falling apart lately. Um, they still did their very best in this match, and as you can see from that picture, you have Tatum Paxley hitting Katana Chance with a Pele kick, and then you also just had a lot of solid action here. But of course, Toxic Attraction and Gigi with those amazing shorts, because y'all know she's my wife. Um, she popped up and caused a distraction. Her and JC both popped up to cause a distraction to Ivy Nile and to Tatum Paxley, which allowed Team Casey Square to take advantage with a neckbreaker 450 splash combo to win the match. And after the match ended, they were celebrating and they were basically saying that since they didn't have a match for Worlds Collide, they were going to have a party in the parking lot, right? But they were interrupted by a surprise team. And this wouldn't be the last surprise that we would get on in this episode of NXT 2.0. There was we got a surprise from Dewdrop and Nikki ASH, who decided to come up to NXT to challenge them for their tag titles at Worlds Collide. And I thought this was really cool considering that these are veterans of NXT and NXT UK. So I thought this was kind of a Worlds Collide moment, even though, of course, NXT UK didn't have a women's tag division. I still think this is a really cool way to utilize people who do have past in NXT and NXT UK. So, Katrina, what did you think about this match? How do you feel about Toxic Attraction um, causing the distraction for Ivy Nile and Tatum Paxley? And how do you feel about this women's tag team title match?
I thought it was a solid tag team match. It's nice to see, especially with Kaden and Katana kind of not being used before in WWE. Like we saw them here and there and maybe segments, they might be in matches, but they were very underutilized in WWE prior to winning these belts. And so it's good to see that they're defending their titles. It's good that they're getting some action. I was not surprised about Toxic Attraction. I knew once they showed them watching that they were going to interfere in some way, and they did. And so I guess it's one of those situations like they're going to be like a little bitter, and petty because they don't have the titles again. And that's the vibe I got from them interfering like that. But otherwise, I did think it was a solid match, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what else they do with them as tag champions for NXT. Uh, I'm looking forward to kind of see like if even like going up towards like Survivor Series. We have like the new tag team, champs as well, um, on the main brands. And so it's like, could this be like a potential like NXT versus like one of, what could it be that for Survivor Series? Could we get something like that? And so I feel like we're in September now, like there's some potential that if this keeps going and they keep showcasing it, we can very well have both women tag teams have it out at Survivor Series. And so I liked what I got from the match. I like that we're seeing them more, and I definitely wasn't surprised. I feel like if anything, Toxic Attraction is going to still be involved in any tag team match at least for the next few weeks. I feel like they're going to keep putting themselves in the situation because they're a little salty that they didn't get to win the titles back. So, but otherwise it was good, and it was nice to see Nikki and D drop. That was a surprise. I didn't think we would see them, but I was like, okay. But then again, it was one of many surprises at NXT. It was quite a few, like, oh, okay, like here we are with this. And so pretty solid women's action.
Yeah, like I'm really excited to see what's gonna come of Dewdrop and Nikki ASH, sort of trying for those tag titles and what type of challenge they're gonna pose for Team Casey Square. Because of course Team Casey Square is a well-oiled machine. They've been a tag team for about a good 2 or 3 years now. And of course they don't intend on letting go of those titles anytime soon. But then you have but they've never really fought Nikki ASH and they've never fought Dewdrop before. So it's just kind of like I'm wondering how that's gonna go. But of course, hopefully later on in the show we'll be able to give our predictions for Worlds Collide. But either way, I was really excited for that. So moving on to backstage things, Diamond Mine was arguing backstage with Roderick Strong, saying that they didn't trust him, but then Ivy now told him to focus on the match and not to focus on anything else. And of course, I'm more than sure that that went well, right? We'll get into it. Then Tatum Paxley, and well, then not Tatum Paxley, but then NXT showed a video of Mako Satomura's wrestling history from her time in Japan, even in WCW, all the way throughout, more stuff in Japan and all over the world, and even making it to NXT UK. So it was cool to see, them sort of big her up and give her more of a moment to have, and sort of familiarize her with the with an audience who may not necessarily know who she is. But of course, leading into Worlds Collide, it's good to see that they're giving her this opportunity and bigging her up as the NXT UK champion. So that was cool. So then we move on finally to Cameron Grimes and the Schism. So Joe Gacy and Cameron Grimes basically like had a back and forth because the Schism were in the ring first, and they were talking about, how their tree is growing, of course, and then celebrating their victory that they had last week, and how they feel like, like their way is like the main way for those who feel abandoned, and they look to add more branches to their tree, right? So they brought up Cameron Grimes' name. Cameron Grimes came out there and he basically, told them to their faces, like, I understand that I've been losing lately and losing lots of high profile matches, but I don't need, you guys in order to make me feel whole. Like, I am okay by myself. Like, I love myself, which is such a good message to send out there, for those who do, feel alone out there in the world. Like, please know that yourself is still very much valid and you can love yourself and be okay. But Joe Gacy was like, look, you ain't got nobody and you deserve a family. Like, you don't have anybody to go home to. You don't have a championship. You don't have a tag team partner. You don't have any type of partner. You don't even have a father. And this is what triggered Cameron Grimes. He was about to leave the ring and everything. But when Joe Gacy said, you don't have a father, that's where Cameron Grimes lost his mind at. And and it's just like he came out there and proceeded to beat up on Joe Gacy, fight everybody, and it was just like really crazy. But it's just like you just can't expect to bring up someone's father, especially if they have passed on, and then they'll be okay with it. But either way, it was still, a really good segment, a really good fight to have. But the Schism wound up coming out on top with this thing. And then also something else interesting, before Cameron Grimes came out, Joe Gacy gave the other two members of the Schism these happy face stickers, which reminded me of Walmart in the 90s and how they used to have the smiley face with the rollback logos and stuff like that. Like, oh my God, that was such a simple time. But yeah, that's just what that reminded me of. So, Katrina, what do you make of this segment? And what do you think Cameron Grimes will do, after Joe Gacy tried to push his buttons a little bit?
I feel like he's like Cameron is like kind of like in the middle here because first he was just like he didn't want anything to do with them at all, and then like last week he was shown kind of watching from the sidelines what they were doing, which showed there was some interest, a little bit of interest there. But then like so I did like the message about him, like a pick me up kind of like about himself, and I did like the message, and I did feel like I was like sometimes the heels like to go a little too far. This is why I'm not a wrestler, because Jacob said that to me personally, but
Right.
I might forget we were like, oh, this is storyline. I might be like, first of all, let's not. So sometimes the heels will push the buttons to see how they can kind of get the baby face kind of wild up, and so um the fact that he kind of got angry and then they beat him, like it was like kind of like, oh man, maybe he get a little bit like over them for saying that, but they wind up and I guess 3-on-1 it kind of makes sense, but I don't know, I don't feel like he's completely like, I'm not gonna try. I feel like there's still that sliver that he maybe very well might be a part of that, because still like last week is what was the point of you being there, if you truly don't need them. I'm not showing up to something I know I don't need to be at, or I know that doesn't really concern me, or I don't feel interested in. I'm not gonna be like, well, let me show up anyway. I don't. We don't need to do all that. And so the fact that he did that, and even then he didn't. It was still like I wouldn't even have came out for any of that if I truly felt like I was above all of that. And so I feel like there's still a chance he can probably like, even though he's being a little bit like digging his heels in the ground a bit with it, it could very well lead to him joining them.
Yeah, it really could. But it's just I just really feel like I just want him to just stay far away from them. But we do have some more stuff in the comments. JD says the smiley face sticker was also a calling card of the murderer Eddie Quist in The Howling. What's The Howling? What is that? I don't know if I've never heard of that.
Right? Is it a movie or a show?
Is it a book?
Let me check. Oh yeah, I think it's a film.
Oh, if he said it's an early 80s werewolf movie. Okay.
Yeah, I just saw it.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for that. Based on a book. Okay, cool. Thank you. Because I'm not really into horror like that, so I really wouldn't know. But then, also on a nerdy perspective, it really reminds me of The Watchmen. And what was the name of that superhero? I can't remember his name, but I know Jeffrey Dean Morgan played him in the movie. He had the smiley face too. But yeah, it was the there we go. The comedian. Thank you. JD on it. Thank you. Um we need to hire him on the squad. But yes. So moving on with NXT. We had a little bit of a segment with Roxanne Perez, walking out in a really nice park area, it seems. And she was reflecting on her relationship with Cora Jade and how sad she was that it ended. And then she was looking at pictures that they took together with the women's tag team titles. And they went all the way back to the Great American Bash and showed them winning. And then, of course, showing Cora Jade turning and talked about, and she also gave the reasons why she couldn't use the pipe to hit Cora Jade with during their match at Heatwave. Like, it wasn't in her to just do it, even though, all of the emotions were running through her head. It's like she really couldn't bring herself to do it. And that's why she lost the match. But she did text Cora Jade and tell her, I'm going to get you for betraying me. And then after she texted her, she blocked her number in her phone and then she sort of walked off. And I was just like, yes, girl. Yes. And then with more backstage action, we got a surprise appearance from Finn Balor, who warned Braun Breaker, the NXT champion, not to underestimate Tyler Bate, who is, of course, the NXT UK champion, and they're fighting each other at Worlds Collide for the unified NXT championships. And then later on in the night, we've had another appearance from Pete Dunne, aka Butch, but I'm gonna say Pete Dunne because my girl Drian Santana cannot will not call him Butch, so I won't disrespect it like that. And he basically told Bate that he needed to win for the legacy of NXT UK. So it was just lots of cool stuff and lots of cool appearances. And we also got another appearance from Gunther, the Intercontinental Champion, and I believe the longest reigning NXT UK champion. And basically, they were talking backstage as well, and he was giving him encouragement too. Um, and we got more surprises as well. So, Katrina, how did you feel about this first batch of surprise appearances backstage?
I liked it. I mean, I feel like with everything changing in the WWE, with Triple H running it, Shawn Michaels kind of getting a little promotion and doing a little more than he was doing before. And then I feel like they're trying to, while we know NXT is like the developmental black, I feel like they're also trying to make it seem like a big deal again. And when you think about how many times we had the mentioning Survivor Series, what like NXT was a part of it. Sometimes they did win, where they were kind of proving that they were a brand to be reckoned with as well. I feel like this is like, in a way, by having, especially with that clash, especially with the clash of war, you know what I mean? Between the brands, between yes, no, the World Collides. That's what it is. Especially with Worlds Collide happening when we're kind of getting the wrap up to NXT UK. I feel like it's kind of cool to see, the NXT, like the people from SmackDown were all just kind of popping up. Like, I feel like it's in a way to kind of take it NXT more seriously, especially when you're kind of throwing everybody NXT UK who didn't like get released, and you kind of seeing them pop up on NXT as well. It's like, okay, well, here they are trying to at least show us, the audience, that they take NXT just as serious as Raw and SmackDown. So I'm okay with the appearances, and it's not taking away too much from what we are getting from the roster in NXT. And so I'm okay with the appearances. I thought it was pretty cool who been popping up so far in the episode. I was like, okay, it's kind of nice to, like, even though we know we might see them on Raw, SmackDown, it's like, oh, like kind of when you go to like a like you see a friend you haven't seen in like a long time, or like if you go to those like school reunions where it's a good one, not like the ones people dread, but like a good high school reunion, you're like, oh, it's been a long time. Let's just see what's going on. Let's catch up. I kind of felt like that's the vibe I got from it. And so I'm appreciating what I'm seeing as far as these surprises. I just feel like they're trying to make the viewers take NXT, even though people did like NXT, especially the ones who complained of like wanting the black and gold brand back. I feel like this is their way of also showing that NXT 2.0 is also a serious brand. So I like that.
Yeah, it's definitely giving the fact that it's like gone are the days where they're going to pretend like the people on the main roster weren't ever on NXT, and I'm so glad of that. Considering the fact it's just like, I mean, some of these people who helped create NXT, did go on to do amazing things. Like, oh my God, like with Finn Balor, like I believe, like he won the NXT title twice. It's like you have all these other people who are on the main roster now, like Gunther and like Pete Dunne, who are on SmackDown, tearing it up there. Like I thought it was just a nice little full circle moment to have them sort of come back and sort of give encouragement to the people on NXT and NXT UK, leading up to this. It was very smart, and I really appreciated, those little nuggets. And of course, we're going to talk more about, the appearances later. But moving on, we had another match. It was a mixed tag team match between Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen, who, of course, are the NXT UK Tag Team Champions, and Fallon Henley versus Pretty Deadly and Lash Legend. Now, this, of course, is coming off of them, fighting backstage a few weeks ago, and Lash Legend fighting with Fallon. So now they're getting together and finally fighting, and also just the fact that Pretty Deadly feels like they should be in contention for the NXT UK titles. But that's going to be solved, with this one thing. So this match started with Fallon and Lash Legend, relatively early, and Fallon was able to show that she was able to handle some of the action that Lash Legend had to offer her. But then after a while, Pretty Deadly came in and basically asserted themselves in the match, even though Fallon was telling them, "Come on, I'll fight you too." And I thought that was really cool. I was like, "Okay, girl." Like let her fight them in, but of course they didn't let that happen because the rules. So they fought in this match, and it was pretty good, for the most part, not even just from the women's action, but from the men's perspective as well. Um the country boys did not come to play in this match at all. They were, slamming and suplexing and all of the above. But this match really didn't have that much of a start. It's like it started for like they wrestled for maybe a good 5 to 7 minutes until Gallus from NXT UK came out and interrupted them and started a bunch of shenanigans. And of course, Mark Coffey and Wolfgang distracted Josh Briggs and everything. And of course, as that fight started taking place and so many other people got to scrapping and everything, Joe Coffey hit Brooks Jensen in the face with a boot, and then Elton Prince was able to roll him up for the win. So Pretty Deadly took advantage of the distraction and won the match on behalf of them and Lash Legend. But after this match, ended, of course, they all got to fighting. It was a brawl between all of the tag teams and, of course, security. Everybody was fighting with one another. It was just a hot mess. So after this point, it was just a lot of crazy stuff going on. But later on, they would, of course, announce that we would have 4 teams fighting for the combined. Well, you would have these teams and the Creed brothers fighting for the unified NXT UK, NXT tag team titles at Worlds Collide. So, Katrina, what did you feel about this segment? How did you feel about the action? And what do you think is next, as these teams prepare to fight each other?
I thought it was to have Lash Legend and kind of part of this, even though we know it's kind of been leading to this for the last few weeks because she was kind of popping herself into popping herself in feuds as she likes to do. I thought it was nice that they had them kind of start off the match and then kind of let the guys kind of do their thing. It would have been nice if they would have kind of let them, like how sometimes we got them like once in a while back in the day we'll get like the women might get a little hidden with the guy, or be a move that the woman will take, and they take that move and then maybe roll out or something. It would have been nice to kind of see that, because I think if it's done correctly it can be done very well. But I thought for what it was really good, and I did like I felt like, as you said, the country boy, they were putting in some work. They say the countrymen like to, work and get hands and knees, get all dirty and nitty gritty and everything. And so I thought they really did well. And I'm becoming more and more fans of Pretty Deadly. And I'm not even sure, like, I feel like I'm liking them more as every week goes on, which I guess is a good thing because they entertain me. But with everything kind of brawling the way it is, I think, like, again, I'm not too fond of brawls if it's unnecessary. But I felt like for the last few weeks, this is kind of tensions were boiling over, and so I feel like eventually it was going to be to this extent eventually, because we already had like the last 2 or 3 weeks where it was just like there was a lot of extra between the tag teams in NXT. And so this for me felt like this was more of like the tension kind of reached its head. And so that's why we got that big brawl. And so it made sense to me. It wasn't an unnecessary brawl. And I feel like this can get real crazy leading up to Worlds Collide. So I'm like super like hyped for it. But I thought it was a really good matchup. And I thought it was well done, even with Lash Legend and Falon.
Yeah, definitely. It was a really strong segment, and I am excited, for where the tag team division is set to go, once all of this is going on. So in the comments, we have JD saying, "What the hell are those purple lace tops?" Hey, pretty deadly stylish. That's what it is. And then from Pluggo B2B, what's good, friends? Hello. And JD says hi. So yeah, like I'm really excited about that. But after this, we had a segment backstage with Mandy Rose and Shayna Baszler, who of course is set to fight Liv Morgan for the SmackDown Women's title at Clash of the Castle. And of course, she has footprints in NXT as being I believe the first two-time NXT Women's Champion, and she was telling Mandy Rose that she actually, needs to get her head in the game for her match against Blair Davenport and Mako Satomura for the unified NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, and that if she doesn't focus on winning the match, the way that she has been winning the matches lately, that it would devalue everything that she said about herself and everything that she's done in NXT so far. And I thought that was a really strong statement to make to someone like Mandy Rose, coming from someone like Shayna Baszler, because Shayna did also mention that Mandy Rose did call herself the baddest bee in the game. And she mentioned how and Shayna mentioned how when she was there was no denying that she was the baddest bee in the game because she ran through everybody. And she really did. Like, she was that girl in NXT. I mean, of course, until she was finally beaten by Rhea Ripley, but she really was that girl. Like when she held that title, it was almost like she was never gonna let that bad boy go. So I thought it was cool that she, actually told Mandy Rose like that she really needs to really just step up and bring her A game to Worlds Collide. And I just really thought that was a strong statement to make, because a lot of people like would think that someone like Shayna Baszler, with the pedigree that Shayna Baszler has, wouldn't say anything like that to someone like Mandy Rose, who to a lot of people is just looks and is only where she is due to her looks and all this other stuff and her aesthetic. But at the same time, wouldn't necessarily want to discuss how much better she has gotten in the ring. But either way, I thought it was a really strong segment. Then also backstage, we had Alba Fire meeting Mako Satomura backstage, and they gave each other props. And of course, Mako actually bowed to her and told her that she beat a great champion, for the NXT UK Championship, because Alba Fire, when she was Kaylee Ray at NXT UK, she beat her, and Alba Fire was the longest reigning women's champion in the modern era when she held that title for as long as she did. So that was a nice little interaction between those two. And then Rhea Ripley popped up and surprised Blair Davenport and actually gave her encouragement backstage as well. So here again, we got all types of really great backstage action and surprises from people and appearances from people from the main roster, and it was really great. So, Kat, what did you think about those interactions with the women?
I liked it. Like I was not a fan of Shayna Baszler. I really was not. She really irritated me when she was in NXT and when she
Me
made it
too.
to the main roster. She irritated my soul. I was so happy. Like I remember when I watched that match and Rhea beat her. The level of like extra I was when Rhea won. I was so extra when Rhea won because Rhea's my girl, and I'm like about time. Like I was being so annoying when Rhea beat her. So I didn't really she irritated me. However, she wasn't wrong. So like even though I didn't like her when she was beating up everybody and kind of running through the roster, what she said was actually very true. She did beat up everybody. She did had an amazing run, and the person that they allowed to beat her was Rhea Ripley, and it made sense with how dominant Rhea Ripley was, and even she had to take a little bit to beat her, and so I thought it was. I was like, okay, I don't you bother me, but talk your shit. Tell her, let it be known. Like you irritate me, but I can't. Like, I'm a person who can acknowledge truth. Okay, so it's a very true statement. And I've mentioned previously about Mandy Rose. Like, a lot of the times, I didn't think she wrestled well. Like, I felt like um she was there because she was, how unfortunately the way Vince McMahon had things going before was you're pretty blonde. You sometimes made it a lot farther than some of the people who really had some like legit skill. And so not gonna sit here like before. I was kind of questioning how she was, and again, not that I want anybody to lose their job, but you think of people who lose their like get released, and you're like, wait a minute, what? And then you see who didn't, and you're like, okay, this is a really odd scenario. And so, but she's gotten better, and so I appreciate that. While going back down to NXT, she's gotten better and changed up how she wrestles, and so that's good. And so I'm interested to see what happens with this. But I would totally like again. I don't really particularly like Shayna Baszler, but I also understood like I was like, you right. I can't even say anything. You were legit correct about this. You were one of the NXT champions who kind of went through the roster. It was kind of like the Oscar run, like completely like. And Oscar left undefeated, so I'm like,
Right.
so she had one of those like really dominant runs in NXT, so she can definitely call herself the baddest bee if like it's earned, like you can't even fault her for saying anything that she said. She was completely 100% correct.
Yeah, it was really great. I enjoyed, seeing all those women, give each other props and everything and praise. So I really loved it. JD left a comment. He said, LOL, Shayna living rent free on 436 in Katrina Blake Lane. Hey, she
Listen,
was living rent free in my mind for a minute too. Like I was really upset with her running through everybody too, especially Bianca Belair. But we ain't gonna
yes.
get into that.
I was ready to like if I ever met her, I was like, listen here, so what is this? Even though she probably really would hurt me because she can actually like legit fight. But I didn't
Yes.
like it. I was so hyped when Rhea Ripley won because I was like, about time. Okay, I was so over Shayna Baszler. However, with that being said, after time has been on, I can accept that she definitely did run through the whole roster. She definitely did.
Yes, and then they also made mention of Mandy. Mandy also made mention of the fact that she is close to possibly breaking Shayna's record, and I don't know how true that is, but either way, Mandy has proven herself to be, a stable champion, but I just don't know how good she'll do. But we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get into Worlds Collide predictions. So moving on with the show, we had Andre Chase versus Charlie Dempsey. And Katrina, is it true that Charlie Dempsey is William Regal's son?
I heard that, but I don't want to. Let me see if I can do a quick little Google search because I did see that on Twitter as well.
Yeah, because I've been hearing that a lot on social media and stuff, and I was just like, I don't know if that. I don't wait, what? And I've been looking
Oh
for
boy,
like,
it's saying it is.
okay, cool, 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 cool. Well, that's great then. So, Charlie Dempsey, is a really good wrestler. Like he's really good to come from the House of Regal. He really proved himself to be technically sound in this match. But then Andre Chase did too. That was probably the most surprising part was the fact that Andre Chase really showed that he could go, toe to toe with somebody like Charlie Dempsey as well. So, oh my God, this match was really good. It was very physical. I enjoyed it, very much so. But weirdly enough, Chase wound up winning the match. Andre Chase wound up winning the match because Bodie Hayward distracted Charlie Dempsey, for Chase to win with a leg trap roll up. So I guess this was Andre Chase's way of teaching him a lesson, saying that he can't bully his students because, of course, they did show that one segment where Charlie was trying to, coach with the team. At NXT UK, and then he wound up, really hurting one of the students and trying to hurt Bodie. So I guess this was Andre's way of teaching him a lesson. But Charlie really did look surprised. He was like, "What? Like you can't beat me? Like I'm better or something like that." But either way, it was still pretty good. It was pretty cool to see Andre fight, step up to him and fight the way that he fought Charlie Dempsey. Even with a sweater and those boots on and everything, he still proves that he isn't just here for play. Like he's here to stay. So how did you feel about this match, Kat?
I thought it was really good. And like I said, I heard it too on social media that that was William Regal's son. And you think of William Regal and you think of like not only his in-ring ability, but what he was for behind the scenes and managing and producing. And so I feel like his son has gotten some good knowledge and some things passed down to him because of that. And so he could wrestle. I was impressed with it, and I was actually impressed with Grayson as well because I'm like, you being the Chase U guy. And not that he can't wrestle, but it's a different character where he's like about university and everything. So I thought it was a really physical match, which again I was very surprised. And he's doing that in dress shoes. It's not like wrestling gear. It's not wrestling gear. It's not wrestling boots or sneakers. He's dead in dress shoes. Like he's like the college dean that you talk to, or the guy who's doing student activities, like the guy who's in charge of student activities at a college. So that's like the vibe of his wrestling gear. But I thought it was a really good match. I was actually surprised of how well it was done, considering how different their styles are. But I liked it. I really enjoyed the match. Probably one of my favorite of the night, actually.
Yeah, me too. I absolutely agree with that. So after this match ended, we had a segment backstage with Mackenzie Mitchell and JD McDonough, who was talking about more of his pain philosophy, which you could really tell was creeping Mackenzie out. But then he also decided to name drop Wes Lee. So that was really cryptic, and I'm wondering if that's going to be the next feud for Wesley. And yeah, it might be really good. I'm really looking forward to that. So, moving on, we have more women's action. Excuse me. Excuse me. We had more women's action between Zoe Stark and Kiana James. Now, of course, the last time we saw Zoe Stark, she lost her NXT women's title match against Mandy Rose and couldn't participate in the women's tag team tournament with Nikita Lyons due to her dealing with knee issues. So this was really our first time seeing her since Heatwave. Um, and of course, we had segments throughout the night showing Kiana James with a whole bunch of letters, beneath her name. I guess that shows all of her degrees that she has, like, because she's really smart. BS, BSN, and so many different things. Shout out to so many people who have all of those degrees and have all of those credentials, because some people can do it, some people can't. But I'm one of those people that can't. But either way, shout out to Kiana because she's well educated. Um, this match was really, really good. Kiana James showed and proved what she had against someone like Zoe Stark. She was doing a whole lot of trash talking. And Stark was really mad about that. So she basically proceeded to continue to throw her around the match, and then she ended it with a belly to back GTS, which is like a really sick move if you see it. Like it's like all of a sudden you're being tossed and then you get a knee in your face. It's crazy. It's really crazy. And I love that move from Zoe Stark. But that's how she won the match. So it was really good. I enjoyed it. So after she won the match, she was trying to celebrate, but then Kiana proceeded to attack her after this. And then as she was getting attacked, we got another visit from Nikita Lyons, who came to fight her on behalf of Zoe Stark, and she came back and we were able to see her again. So that was cool. And then they had a little segment backstage talking about, what they have in store for, the tag division or whatever. But that was pretty cool. So, Kat, what did you think about this match, and what do you think is next for Zoe and Nikita?
Well, I mean, it's still possible because I'm guessing they kind of removed Zoe out of the title picture. So I don't think I'm seeing like another her and Mandy anytime soon. And so it looks like if anything, if they're kind of making sure to keep her and Nikita showing like doing like with Nikita coming out and kind of saying, I kind of got your back, partner, even though they're, the tournament's kind of over. I'm assuming that's the route they're gonna go with kind of having them as a tag team for a little bit. And so it could very well be where they can even, challenge again for the, or challenge rather for the NXT tag titles. I see that happening. I feel like that's where they're doing it right now, which is unfortunate because, like, I think, Zoe being gone and still proving that she still got it, essentially to kind of just like she had that one match. She's like, oh, okay, guess she can move you to the side. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, sometimes we'll get the rematches or we'll see a few go on a little longer than that. And so it's unfortunate, but I do think that that's probably what they're trying to do with her and Nikita is kind of like build them as a tag team, which explains why instead of letting Zoe kind of deal with that, Nikita came out instead to help to kind of show that as of right now they're strong as a team.
Yeah, and then on top of that, it's just you have Kiana James, who was sort of jaw jacking at Nikita Lyons before the tag team tournament started, and she was starting mess with her. So I think this is just another way of Nikita, saying like, "Look, girl, like I've got your number. Stay away from me, and stay away from my partner too." So that was really good. I actually like that. That happened, and that she had Zoe Starks' back. So I'm losing my voice a little. Moving on towards really like the last match that we had on the NXT card. We had a match between Diamond Mine and Gallus, who of course they've been dealing with for the past few weeks since NXT UK made their invasion and stuff, and they started beating up on the Diamond Mine. So this match was really solid. Like you had a lot of great action from both teams, all kinds of big meaty men slapping meat, as Big E would say. um, in terms of this match, you had the Creeds, who showing that they were definitely game to fight a team like the Coffee Brothers and Wolfgang. You had Damon Kemp stepping up to the plate and everything. They were really focused in this match because, of course, Ivy now told them to focus, which means you should listen to the women in your life if they're telling you good things. But also on top of that, they were just showing and proving that they could be a well-oiled machine up against a team like Gallus, who is also a really good well-oiled machine on NXT UK if you aren't familiar with that. But as they were focused and sort of pumping themselves up, as you can see in that picture, Roderick Strong came out to be the author of confusion. um in this, and then Damon Kemp, got distracted by Roderick Strong and even took the time to take his phone and step on it, and then they got to arguing, and then Kemp walked into a lariat from Joe Coffey, which sealed the win for Gallus. So Gallus had the upper hand um after this point. But then after that, there was a whole nother brawl that took place when Pretty Deadly decided to join in, and then Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen came out there and joined the fight themselves as well, which caused a whole bunch of drama, as you can see. So much drama, drama, drama everywhere. So basically, this led to the announcement being made that these four teams, like I mentioned earlier, will be fighting for the unified NXT Tag Team Championships at Worlds Collide. There's no telling who can win out of these crops of teams. So we're gonna get into that later. So then after that, we had a funny little segment with Nathan Frazier and Axiom reading WWE comic books at that, which are really good. I do recommend you read them because those are really good. Um, and they were talking about Nathan actually asked Axiom about NXT UK and how come he never got to participate in them, and how he was sad that he didn't get to participate in it either. But if you know exactly who Axiom is, you do know that he did participate in NXT UK. So that was pretty funny. But I guess they sort of but after they had that understanding, they decided to challenge each other to a match. So I'm not sure if that's happening at Worlds Collider maybe next Tuesday, but either way, they challenged each other, and there's a little bit of a friendly competition thing there. So, how did you feel about this match, Katrina? And how do you, I mean, it's kind of repetitive because these teams have been fighting all night. But how did you feel about this match?
Again, because earlier we already kind of had like a lot of tension, and so now you have more teams added to that, and so it's like, in a way, I kind of feel like they're trying to prove who the better tag team is. It's kind of giving those vibes, and so I think that's what we're doing. And the fact that we are now getting the match, I guess we will see, at least for whoever wins the match, who would be the better tag team. But again, I'm not like, I was literally like, oh, we did a brawl again because we really just had one earlier in the show. I probably wouldn't have minded if they would have done the second brawl only, because at least all of their tag teams would have been involved. If we're going with this, it's like chaos between all the tag teams in NXT. It would have been kind of nice to not to do it twice so soon, because it was like mid show, if little like after mid show when we had that first brawl. And so I was okay with it, but I would have preferred not to get two in one show. I don't particularly like we don't need all the brawling happening this much. But I understand, again, I feel like it's all this discord between the tag teams. It's all, even within some of the tag teams themselves, within their own unit, there's a lot of, like confusion and discord between them. And so I feel like the only way, again, is to kind of say, well, who's the better tag team? And then maybe other people will get it together, or maybe people will leave teams. We don't know, but I feel like this is what they're leading to. Just kind of say, out of NXT, who's the top tag team, who's the head honchos. And so I was a little like, oh, why we get another brawl? But it was okay for, again, what I know they're doing with the tag teams.
Yeah, I understand that sometimes it can be, grow a little bit long in the tooth when you're watching, all these brawls take place. But they had to, make us excited and make us pumped to watch all these teams fight, and that's exactly what they did. For I can say, that's what they did for me. So I'm really excited to see, what these teams have to offer and to see who's gonna come out on top with all the gold. Like I'm really excited. Like, will Diamond Mine pull it together? Will Gallus and Pretty Deadly, represent for their UK brand, which is now officially closed, and represent for Europe? Like, it's a lot. And then will Brooks Jensen and Josh Briggs, fight to retain their titles? Like, it's just a lot going on, but I am still excited about it. So the last segment we had for NXT was the NXT North American champion Carmelo Hayes, the A champion, and of course his best friend Trick Williams, storm into the ring and crashing NXT 2.0 and basically taking over and saying that if Carmelo is the A champion, then how come he doesn't have an opponent for Worlds Collide? And it's kind of interesting that he said that, considering the fact that NXT UK really doesn't have an equivalent um to his title. So I guess that's kind of why it made sense that he didn't. But Carmelo didn't like it. Like, all week on Twitter, he was talking about how he was angry that he didn't have, an opponent. And then also on Twitter, there were lots of people bringing up his name, as a possible new member of Hit Row and so many different things. And he just made lots of references during his promo that I can't repeat right now. But either way, it was a cool promo because Carmelo knows how to talk. And it was just really good. And so he said, well, fine, since I don't have an opponent, I'll just, not participate. And then I'll just hold the championship or whatever. But lo and behold, he gets interrupted by a former NXT North American champion and Starlight, Ricochet. His music hits, everybody gets crunk as heck. We're all lit and all of the above. Like, everything's cool. We're just excited. I'm excited. I'm freaking out because I'm just like, a match between Carmelo and Ricochet. Carmelo and Ricochet. We're being spoiled. We're being spoiled this weekend. We're being spoiled. And Ricochet, of course, came out there and said his piece. And what was so funny is Carmelo and Trick even roasted him as he came in the ring and picked up a microphone. He was like, oh, be careful with that. Like, I don't know if you know how to use it, because a lot of people on social media be talking about Ricochet's promo skills and how they feel like they're not that great. And they were just throwing shade at that. And if it's one thing Carmelo has shown, is the fact that he do be paying attention on social media. Like, he knows to talk. But it's just like Ricochet came out there and was just like, look, like, I I was an NXT North American champion, and I'm willing to fight you, if you want to put it on the line. And Carmelo was making it seem like he really kind of didn't want to, but then they proceeded to get into a fight, after they had bragging rights back and forth or whatever. And then, of course, Ricochet hit him with one of his moves, and then Carmelo rolled out of the ring, and so did Trick. And that's basically where NXT 2.0 ended. So now this match is official, and they gonna fight each other at Worlds Collide. So, Katrina, how did you feel about this segment? And are you as excited as I am about this match?
I was surprised, honestly. I remember Ricochet for the first time from NXT, and so
Yes.
he had his moments on the main roster, but we know that WWE didn't necessarily do him always well on the main roster. He wasn't treated like what he could do as far as skill, especially if you catch any like Ricochet matches before he made it into WWE. He can wrestle, and he's a high flying wrestler, and so we don't always get to see what Ricochet can always do. And then you have somebody who likes super arrogant, egotistical, rah rah like Carmelo is. I feel like it's gonna be a really good matchup. Like, he was sitting here like he was acting like he was concerned that he didn't have a match, but he also didn't seem like he wanted to defend either. So it was like, bro, how are you complaining? Like, oh, nobody want to have yet, but then you're sitting here like not.
Right.
So clearly, you were just talking to talk. It was one of those situations like you had a lot of things that you really didn't want to defend it, and so I think it's going to be a really good match. I think Carmelo can wrestle his ass off as well. And again, there are two different techniques they have in as far as in ring ability, and so I think it's going to be a really good match. Because I was wondering what was happening with that title too for the paper. I was wondering, and so I guess they answered that question as far as they added it to the pay per view. And so I think it's going to be like a good match. I think it's like maybe this again, kind of like with some of the other people who went down to NXT, not only having the main people go down there to kind of show NXT is also a serious contender as far as brands, but again to kind of refresh the character a bit. Like Ricochet's kind of been like, he hasn't been doing too much on the main roster, and so I feel like this is a way to kind of reset and refresh his character by having him go against a star like Carmelo. So I think it's going to be a really good match.
Yeah, but I will say, on the SmackDown side, what Ricochet has been doing, he was feuding with Happy Corbin, and he did just defeat him last Friday. So really, outside of that, he hasn't really been doing as much. But since Triple H has taken over creative, everything's been getting a revamp, and Ricochet, has been one of the beneficiaries of that revamp. But the thing about Carmelo Hayes is that even though he talks the talk, he walks that walk too in the ring. Like, every match he fights in, especially the last one he fought in a heat wave against Giovanni Vinci, was a complete banger. It's like, even though he does talk a lot of stuff, and he talks cash-ish, he can afford it because he has the bank account for it. Like, he can afford his cash talking. So I am more than excited about this match. Like, I am so excited. Like, I was so excited, like really crunk about it. But that's pretty much how NXT 2.0 ended. And we're going to talk more about, Worlds Collide a little bit later. But of course, we got to get into, and we got to handle this with care, because we got to get into this final episode of NXT UK. My God.
Yeah.
The final episode, Katrina. It felt like it was just yesterday when we were given our assignments and say we were going to do an NXT 2.0 UK after show, and now it's over just as soon as it began. What are we going to do? We're gonna.
We hoping we can get NXT Europe soon, and so we can at least incorporate some of our lovely UK stars. I'm hoping they're going to come back in NXT Europe. So hopefully they kind of do this quickly enough where we're not like, oh, we're gonna wait like a whole year, we're gonna wait 2 years. I'm hoping, but it was a little bittersweet. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh man, because I've been enjoying NXT UK since I've been like I've watched before we started to do this show. Like on and off, but like getting to like watch it regularly is like this is a solid hour of wrestling. And sometimes you want good wrestling, and I don't think there's ever been a point in UK where they dropped the ball on that. And so it's like bittersweet.
Yeah, watching NXT UK reminds me of the first time I had Longhorn Steakhouse. It's like when you eat a very substantial steak for the first time and you eat it and it's really good. Like that's how I felt watching NXT UK. I hate to use food references, but that's just what it reminds me of. Like it's like steak. And I'm gonna miss that steak, but hopefully we'll get more. So NXT UK started with women's action. Of course, they did beef up their NXT UK Championship final between Tyler Bate and Trent Seven, but it started with a fatal four-way elimination match to basically qualify the winner for the NXT UK Women's Championship. It was between Blair Davenport, Isla Dawn, Amel, the French Hope, and Eliza Alexander. This match was really good. I really loved it. Oh, JD in the comments saying it will be 5 long years. Yes. Oh, 5 years. But yes, this match was really good because as you can see in this picture, Blair Davenport, was coming with the hard hits and the hard strikes. Like it was all kinds of fights going on. Like I believe at the very beginning, it's like they all ganged up on Isla Dawn and kicked her out of the ring. And then Blair and Eliza basically decided they were going to beat up on Amal, and then they decided to beat up on each other. As you can see in that picture, Amal had some high flying action jumping off of the top turnbuckle. They were fighting all outside of the ring, fighting inside of the ring. It was just a pretty good match, and I believe really and then you have Isla Dawn with all of her kicks and all of her mind games and stuff like that, because y'all know she's from the dark era. I'm more than sure she's happy Halloween is starting. But here's the thing: since it's an elimination match, somebody's got to get eliminated first. And Isla Dawn was eliminated when when Amal decided to hit her with a heartbreaker, and then all three of them decided to cover Isla Dawn, so she was the first person eliminated. Then, as the match went on, they proceeded to fight each other and fight each other and fight each other, and then Amal got pulled into a drop kick from Blair Davenport from the top rope, and she got covered, and then Amal got eliminated, which broke my heart because I really was rooting for Amal. And we continue to support Amal because, of course, she was let go. Um, as they did make their announcements for NXT Europe. But this was a really good showing for her, and it was a great last showing for her. So the final two were Blair Davenport and Eliza Alexander, and they both showed and proved, why they both deserve to be in this match. But after a lot of back and forth between the two, Blair Davenport was able to get the upper hand and hit her Falcon Arrow for the win, and Blair Davenport won the match, eliminated Eliza Alexander, and qualified to be the number one contender for the NXT UK Women's Championship, which is now a triple threat match for the unified NXT Women's Championship match at Worlds Collide versus Mandy Rose and Mako Satomura. So this was a really great women's match here. You got to see the best of all of these women, and Blair Davenport stamped her flag in the dust for this. So, Katrina, how did you feel about this match?
I thought it was good. It was kind of sad because we knew, for instance, there was a release in the group that was shown, and so like I knew what we were getting because we already knew Blair was the number one contender, last week. And so it's unfortunately like it's like I wish they would have just tried to do this in a way that it could have at least been the review before we got to NXT. So maybe kind of delayed how they did it on NXT. So it's unfortunate. But for what it was a really good match. It was nice to see them kind of get get the last ones who like was gone to get the last hurrah in. But it was also nice to kind of see Blair do like be. She's been dominant, in a lot of her matches recently, and so I feel like between her, Michael, and Mandy Rose, it's gonna be a good match. And while you know, I have my thoughts, I guess, when we get to the prediction part, but otherwise, it was a good open. Again, bittersweet because it's like I knew who was winning this. We already knew who was the number one contender, but it's also like, damn, we're not going to see this person anymore. And at WWE, this person's gone unless they decide to bring them back. And like, man, this is really like, okay, so this is like the send off we're getting for the women at NXT. And we'll see what happens with the rest of them. Are they going to kind of incorporate them into the NXT 2.0? Or are we going to have to wait to see some of these ladies when they get Europe off the ground?
Yeah, it really was a good send off, for these women, who basically helped to build this brand. Um, oh, I can't help since this is all kind of like a love letter. It felt like this week it was almost like a love letter to everything that's been great about NXT. And I just can't help but think about Paige and how Saraya, and how she basically helped to kick this off, even though it was way early and we had no clue that an NXT UK could exist at this time. It's just like I think about her and how she basically was able to sort of kick this off in a way, in a sense of showing, some of the best of NXT. Well, some of the best of NXT and also the best of the United Kingdom's women's wrestlers. And so watching these women fight was almost like I just couldn't help but think about her. Like it's weird. Like Soraya lives in my head rent free a whole lot. So it's just like thinking about her and thinking about NXT and thinking and watching these women fight. It's just like I feel like she really did open the door, for these girls to be able to do this. So it is bittersweet, but I'm more than sure that the future will be kind to them. Because of course, to the ones who are in NXT 2.0, I'm sure we'll see them again. And the ones who aren't, we'll still see them again because, wrestling is big. So we'll see them elsewhere. And then, of course, they might get brought back in for NXT Europe. You just never know. But yeah, that's next year. And so we got to focus on the now. So moving on, of course, we had a second match between Kenny Williams and Saxon Huxley. And Saxon Huxley, of course, was had a match last week where he sort of broke up with his old tag partner and he kind of aligned himself with Chase U, but he came out here by himself and he fought against Kenny Williams. And this match was pretty good. It was really like Kenny Williams is really good, in terms of his technical work. But then you have Saxon Huxley, who's just a really powerful man, in terms of all of his heavy lifting and stuff. So I really did enjoy this match, and I felt like it was a nice little match to sort of put in the middle in between everything that had just happened. It was a pretty good match, and of course, Saxon Huxley came out the winner with the pinfall. And after he won his match, Andre Chase and the gang came out to celebrate with him, and they let him fly the flag for Chase U. So it's been really cute to see, Chase U kind of go back and forth between 2.0 and UK lately. So Katrina, how did you feel about this match?
I'm gonna have to agree. I thought it was a good middle segment because again, we know what we were getting with the women's division. We knew what we were getting for that finals, and so it was a good little like, okay, something we wasn't gonna expect on this show because we already we was complaining for the last 2 weeks that man, they kind of like spoiled what was happening for us. It didn't have the same feel, and so it was a nice
Right.
little middle segment kind of to have something that was fresh that we wasn't aware what was going to happen, that we wasn't privy to before the show aired. And so it was nice. I thought it was a solid match. I thought it was a good match. Again, NXT UK is just good with like solid wrestling, and so it was a solid match. And I thought it was just nice to have a little match where I didn't know who was going to win because I was just like, it took so much away by them revealing all of that. And so it's like it was a good match. It was good matches, but it's just like knowing, I guess, the winner beforehand just takes away the surprise, I guess, or like, ooh, the wonder when you're watching it. But it was a good middle match. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. And I will say this though. True, like Kenny Williams creeps me out. No shade to him. He's a great wrestler, but he creeps me out. And I miss seeing him creep me out. So yeah. Hopefully, he'll go on to do greater things as well. So moving on to the final match. Well, before we get to the match though, because they did show a history of Tyler Bate and Trent Seven. As NXT UK started, like UK, NXT UK started with the United Kingdom Championship tournament, and in this tournament, you had some of the best wrestlers that we had never heard of at this point, fight each other for the then United Kingdom Championship. And Tyler Bate fought in a absolutely stellar match that I'm more than sure you can go back and watch on Peacock now, against Pete Dunne for that title, and he became the very first champion. So they showed him and they talked a whole lot about Trent Seven and him's relationship, prior to that, and a little bit after that as well at Progress Wrestling and so many other places. And Tyler Bate said that Trent Seven, was one of the first people who really believed in him and his wrestling ability. So they basically went on, to NXT UK after it was officially started. They won so many titles, so many cups. I believe Tyler Bate was the first Grand Slam champion of NXT UK, because of all the titles he's won, because he's won the tag titles, the UK title, and the Heritage Cup title as well. And then they showed Trent Seven's successes, but then of course they also showed him stabbing Tyler Bate in the back, leading up to their rivalry now, and how they got to this point to fight in this tournament for the vacated UK title. So that was a really good segment to show, in terms of their history against each other, which fed into this match. So here we are in the today of things. And this match took place. You had the title on the table in the middle of the ring, and you had Sid Scallion, the general manager, of course, sitting in the middle. And they announced both of them, and I love how they both came out with their towels around their necks, and the towels both said British Strong Style, which basically, represents the best of what they have to offer in their style of wrestling. I was also really fascinated to know that Trent Seven has a move that's called the Birminghammer, because of course in England they do have a Birmingham, but of course they pronounce it Birmingham. But me being from Birmingham, Alabama, I really enjoyed finding that out. But this match was a banger, an absolute stellar banger, which basically represented, the UK brand and everything that it stands for. Like, these two beat the heck out of each other. And I mean the heck out of each other, from lockup to slapping each other in the chest to throwing each other down to working on body parts. These guys gave each other hell. But it was good if you're into that type of wrestling where both of these, where you have the opponents just destroying each other limb from limb, reaching within themselves to not give up. Like, it was just one of the best matches I've seen this year, honestly. Like, it was really really good, and you could tell they really know each other. They studied each other, because of course, like I mentioned, their history beforehand, like they know each other so well. So they even kept hitting each other with their own moves. Like, it was just really cool. Like, you had Trent Seven hitting the Tyler driver on Tyler. You had Tyler hitting like a figure seven on him. Like, it was just all kinds of amazing, ridiculous wrestling stuff that I definitely recommend that you guys please go back and watch. But there had to be a winner. And of course, um comedically enough, the winner, of course, was Tyler Bate. We know he is the champion. But what was so beautiful about this, though, is that even though you knew who was going to win the match, it was great to see how he won the title. It was great to see that he fought tooth and nail for it. And Tyler Bate is, of course, now our NXT UK champion. And it was such a beautiful full circle way to end NXT UK. And then of course after before the show even ended, as he was celebrating his win, they showed more footage of the UK brand and how it got started, and all of the stars and all of their pivotal moments throughout, and all of their champions and such. And that's how they signed off. They signed off with showing all of their moments, and then with Nigel McGuinness and his commentary partner basically saying that they were just so happy to have watched this brand grow over the past 5 years and that they can't wait to see what the future has to offer for NXT Europe. So it was a beautiful send off, a very full circle moment for Tyler Bate, who was the first and last NXT UK champion. So, Kat, how did you feel about this match? And did it make you feel all of the feelings inside?
It was, as you said, a banger. It was a like, again, we knew what the outcome was, but I guess it was nice to kind of see it and see it done in their way. See them do what NXT UK is known for. See them doing it and what the brand represents. And so it was a really like solid way to end NXT UK. Even the fact that it was two guys who did have so much history with each other, two guys that been through a lot with each other there. And so it was good. Like, again, we knew who was winning. We knew for some time who was winning, but I thought it was nice to, again, for them to kind of end it on their own terms. I felt like that was them kind of like showcasing to the NXT UK fans, like, this is what we do. This is what we do over here on this brand. And so it was like, oh, like, yay, it was a good match, but also like, well, yeah, this is really truly like the end. And so, like I said earlier in the show, I do hope we get NXT Europe soon, and it's not too much of a wait, because I do like NXT 2.0, but we know it is very different than NXT UK. It's very different wrestling, and so it's nice to kind of have a mix of like, you have serious wrestling, some fun wrestling, and fun gimmicks and characters in 2.0. But a lot of the things in NXT UK was serious, strong style type wrestling, like that chain technical type wrestling that we don't always get in NXT 2.0. And so it's unfortunate, but hopefully, Europe won't take too long to kind of get started up. And they're kind of already working on it. And it's not like, oh, we'll wait a year or so. I'm hoping that's what they're doing. But it was like, damn, this is really good. I felt like they kind of showed up and showed out to end off NXT UK.
Yeah, it was a beautiful send off, and it was really great how at the end they had a picture of all of the NXT UK roster at that point with their t-shirts on from the Performance Center, and it said "Thank you" above, and I was just like, "Oh, that's so sweet." But JD in the comments had a question. He says, "Is NXT UK just rebranding as Europe, just a marketing change up?" I don't know if it's a marketing change up, but essentially it is in a sense rebranding as Europe, because they basically in their announcement they said that the UK, that basically European wrestlers um have such a huge, like, there's just so many talented people that in all of Europe that deserve to have, more of a bigger representation, because it's not just the UK. You have Spain, you have Portugal, you have so many other countries in Europe that deserve to be represented. So that's really what's happening, and it's supposed to come out in 2023, so that's next year. They didn't say specifically when next year, but it is 2023, so we have, a while. But basically that was the end of NXT UK. That was the final episode. But before we go, we do want to talk about what's to come with NXT Worlds Collide, which will be taking place on Sunday, September the 4th, aka my 29th birthday, on Peacock. And this is going to be a banger. This card is amazing. So for predictions, I have the card pulled up, so I'm just going to say, in the comments, if you have any predictions for NXT Worlds Collide, let us know what your predictions are, and maybe we'll show them on the screen. So, Kat, what are your predictions for Braun Breaker versus Tyler Bate for the unified NXT championships? And yes, JD, it's the same day as AEW, but it's earlier in the day, so you will be able to catch AEW's All Out. So yeah.
I don't know, because it's like Braun has really been showing up as champion every match he's won his matches. But I think if we're now basing it off skill, I feel like Tyler might have the upper hand in that regard, as far as like his skill. And so I want to say, but if they're truly trying to bring some of the UK people, I'm gonna go on a limb and say maybe Tyler will win this.
Yeah, a part of me sentimentally is predicting that Tyler's gonna win too, simply because of the fact that we did just see him wrestle this banger, and because UK did just end. Um, I guess I'm still in my feelings, but and I love Braun Breaker to death. I love him, and I love his legacy and what he's been able to bring to that. But I would love it if Tyler Bate wound up winning, and combining the titles like that. Like that would just be really cool for him. I feel like maybe Braun Breaker, like if Braun Breaker does beat Tyler Bate, like who else can he fight? Like who else, is in line to fight him?
Yeah.
Like, like who else could it be? I'm more than sure they could come up with somebody else, or maybe Carmelo might, at some point. But as of right now, since he's still NXT North American champion, like who could very well fight Braun Breaker? Who is left for him to fight? So I don't know. We'll just have to see. But I predict Tyler Bate as well, for the sake of, sentimental value, because I'm still in my feelings. So the next match we're going to predict is Mandy Rose versus Mako Satomura versus Blair Davenport for the unified NXT Women's Championship. Who do you think is going to win this match, Dad?
I know Mandy's on her little streak and all, but as I've said before, I do not think like you're putting her in the ring with two women who can like wrestle. You got and make like she can wrestle. So I'm feeling honestly, and again, and it's not. I mean, it could really well be they be like, "No, Mandy's gonna win this," and then Mandy gonna really talk her shit about how great she is. But I feel like you got me. Like, I don't want Mako necessarily to lose her belt. I feel like there's so much you can do with her with the other women on NXT that I like. If keep her there until y'all bring back your. And I wouldn't mind her like being the one to like kind of unify the titles, but be the one to hold the belt. But I feel like if I'm going in like ranking, it will be Mako and then Blair that will win it. I feel like Vandy's the third option. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to swerve us like that, but I feel like if going off skill, like pure skill, I feel like what can happen during the match that Mick was losing this? Like, what is happening during this match? What are y'all gonna do to make me believe that she lost this? And so I'm gonna go with her. But if close second will be Blair. I just feel like Vandy's like the no. I don't see happening. It could, but I just don't. With the skill set in that ring, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I'm predicting Mako Satomura as well, because they don't call her the final boss for nothing. Like, they really don't. Like, they don't call her the final boss for nothing. And Blair Davenport, as tough as she is, I'm more than sure that she will give them a good fight. But we can't ever underestimate Mandy Rose, because she'll find a weakness and she will take full advantage of it and be crafty enough to possibly win in some type of smart and sadistic way. Because it's just like a lot of people probably didn't think that she would win up against Zoey Stark, but she wound up taking advantage, of Zoe's injury in order to win as well. So it's just like we can't ever miscount Mandy Rose on the part of craftiness. But you are right. In terms of skill, Mandy is sort of outmatched. In terms of, and definitely in terms of experience when it comes to Blair and Mako. But I am predicting that Mako will win and she will be like the final boss for real, and hold all the gold. So I'm predicting Mako. And partly also because of still in my feelings. And because I don't want to let the NXT UK title belt go. The women's title is so cute. And I just don't. Well, it'll still be in my house. But whatever. Moving on. We have Katana Chance and Kaden Carter, Team KC Square versus Dewdrop and Nikki ASH for the NXT women's tag team titles. Who do you think's gonna win that one?
Had to mute. Sorry, my phone just went off. I don't know. I feel like while Katana and Kaden, Carter, like just became champions and everything. I can't like you have Dewdrop and she can wrestle, and while we haven't really got a chance to really see her do that with like the name changes and that weird thing they had her going on with her and Eva Marie. I feel like if this is any way to kind of jump kick her back into showing the fans what she can do, this will be that time to do it. And so I mean, I don't want to say it's the suit of that they would lose it, but I feel like Dewdrop is like a bit of force to be reckoned with. I feel like because of that, I'm leaning more towards her because of her. But I mean, they could rotate, but I feel like I'm leaning on because of what Dewdrop is capable of. Like when she was hype, she was kicking some ass. Like she was really good when she was in NXT UK, and so I feel like with her, I'm leaning more towards her because of who I know she is to be as like a wrestler.
I hear you. I absolutely hear you. And it will be interesting to see Dewdrop and Nikki ASH sort of come out of the woodworks and fight like the way that we haven't seen them fight in a while. Because before Nikki was almost a superhero, she was Nikki Cross, and she was that girl, and she would go crazy on you. Like she used to go like mad crazy on you, like in that ring. And then you have Dewdrop, who's also known as Piper Niven back in the day. Like we'll probably get to see them come out of their bag, in a way that we haven't seen them come out of their bag on the main roster. And I'm excited to see that. But I'm predicting that Team Casey Square will still come out with the win, because it's like you said, they did just win those titles, and I'm not ready to watch them lose it. Like I just feel like they might still adapt. I feel like something that they are good at doing is adapting to their opponents. So I'm predicting Team Casey Square will still be champions by the end of Worlds Collide. But I do feel like that Nikki and Dewdrop are still gonna, give it a really great try. Sammy in the comments says he's predicting Mandy Rose will win the unified NXT women's tag team. Well, not tag team. NXT championship for the women. So I just wanted to highlight that. Hey Sammy, thanks for watching. Um then of course we have the fatal four-way tag team elimination match for the unified NXT tag team championships between the Creed brothers, Brooks Jensen and Josh Briggs, Gallus with Mark Coffey and Wolfgang, and Pretty Deadly.
I'm going a little bit with biasness here. I'm gonna say Pretty Deadly. I feel like I'm liking what they're doing. They're entertaining. They can wrestle, and yet they're a bit like flamboyant, but it's fine. Tyler Breeze was. He was pretty and selfies and all that stuff, and so
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be them, honestly, and I think it's gonna be a really good match. I do. I feel like all four teams are definitely gonna kill it, but I feel like Pretty Deadly. It's like if you're trying to get them over with the NXT UK 2.0 audience, but you also remember that they were from NXT UK. You can really like do something, I think, with it. And being that they're so like over the top, it's some interesting stuff I think you can do with that, with them being unified, especially with the way they talk.
Yeah.
I feel like you can really get some really good segments if they are the ones to unify the titles. And so I am going with Pretty Deadly.
That's a really good prediction. Like I totally get it. This was probably the hardest for me to come up with, because they're all really substantial tag teams and they're all really good, but I really feel like I'm going to do a process of elimination. Number 1, I feel like the Creed brothers, by hook or by crook, something's going to happen to them which might involve Roderick Strong sabotaging them. That's something I'm predicting for Worlds Collide, because he's going to feel a way about not being on the card, or feel a way about them not listening to him. So I feel like he is going to sabotage them in some way to where they can't fully, defend them as successfully as they could without shenanigans. So I'm predicting that's going to happen. Um, when it comes to Brooks Jensen and Josh Briggs, they might still do a good job regardless. Um, but the thing is, they get a little bit hot headed, and I feel like that might work against them. Um, and then you have Gallus, and they're just powerhouses. Like they are just big, beefy powerhouse men. But then you also have Pretty Deadly too. I'm predicting Pretty Deadly as well. I don't necessarily want to, but I'm predicting Pretty Deadly as well, because Gallus doesn't necessarily need to win the UK titles. I mean, the unified tag team titles. Um, because of course they did just, make their presence known on NXT 2.0 television on USA. So they don't necessarily have to win, and it won't necessarily hurt them if they don't, because they could always go for it later. So I am predicting that Pretty Deadly might win. I agree with you with that. Yeah, that's the process of elimination. I have to do that sometimes because, yeah, it's just a lot. But yeah, that's just what I feel like is going to happen. So I predict Pretty Deadly as well. And last, but certainly not least, we have possibly the show stealing match of the weekend: Carmelo Hayes versus Ricochet for the NXT North American Championship. Who are you predicting?
It is going to be a good match. I truly feel like it's going to be one of the better matches on the card, but I don't see Carmelo losing. I really don't.
Me neither.
I feel like Ricochet is gonna give it his all. He's gonna maybe, and it might be like close. It might be, you might be like, oh, wait a minute, a couple of times, but I do not see Carmelo losing that just yet. I don't see it, and so I'm thinking he's gonna retain.
This is hard because I love them both, but I don't see Carmelo losing either, especially with Trick Williams out there. But then also at the same time, I almost hope that Trick Williams doesn't interfere as much so we could just watch them fight and watch them really get into each other. And I'm ready for Ricochet to really show and prove that he is that guy. And I'm almost willing to bet that even if he does lose this match, that he might stay, in NXT. Because honestly, on SmackDown, it's like I feel like on the main roster, Ricochet has basically done everything that he could possibly do, and he might do better to possibly, stay on NXT 2.0, and that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing for him. But on the one hand, if he did win, that would be cool because that would offer something different, and Carmelo would be sad. But then he would probably have his eyes on the NXT Championship and whoever wins that match at Worlds Collide. But and a lot of people online were really pushing for him to be in the main title contention because he's that guy and he deserves it, right? But it's just hard to bet against the A champion. So for now, I'm predicting Carmelo Hayes as well. So either way, Worlds Collide is going to be a fantastic event, and I'm really pumped.
Yeah.
So just so you guys know, like I did say earlier, NXT Worlds Collide comes on Sunday, September the 4th, before AEW All Out earlier in the day. Um, on Peacock, so you won't feel so overwhelmed with your wrestling watching because there's a lot going on. And then you got Clash of the Castle on Saturday too.
Yeah.
But Katrina, thank you so much for joining me. I know this is a pretty long-winded show, but we had a lot to talk about with NXT UK wrapping up and then with Worlds Collide coming up. So Katrina, tell everybody where they can find you and what you've got going on.
I am on most social media platforms in Cat We Trust, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. The E is a 3. And I did announce it, but I will be at New York Comic Con on October 7th. I got the date today, and so October 7th at 6:15, I will be hosting a panel talking about women of color in wrestling because we do a lot of things in wrestling on screen, behind the scenes, refereeing, interviewing, commentating. We do all of those things, and so I thought it was an important conversation to be had. And so that will be at Comic Con. So if you are going to Comic Con that week on that Friday, come support the panel. Lovely Stephanie Hardy will be there as well as a panelist. And so it would be a super awesome conversation. It would be awesome to meet you guys. But that's like what I have like really close coming up.
Okay. And as usual, know that you can follow me, your girl Stephanie Hardy, on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy. You can check out my podcast, The Hardy Wrestling Podcast, everywhere you get your shows. I might be releasing a new episode this weekend, yes, on my birthday weekend, because I didn't release an episode last weekend because my voice was on the fritz. I'm recovering from some throat issues, but I am doing fine. I'm doing a lot better now. So I will be releasing a new episode then. And I too, like Katrina said, will be at New York Comic Con for the very first time participating in the panel for women of color in wrestling. And I get to talk about that with her. And of course, Shantice from Talk of Champions. I get to talk with her and other people as well. I'm so excited to be a part of it. It'll be my first time at New York Comic Con, but not my first time in New York because I've been 2 times this year already. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be awesome. But thank you guys for joining us. And as usual, know that you can follow Women's Wrestling Talk on Instagram and Twitter at WW Talk Pod. Check out our website at www.talkpod.com where we have all of our articles, lots of different interviews, and so many other different things like merchandise and stuff you can check out as well. Subscribe to our YouTube where we have all of that other video content as well. And also subscribe to our Twitch where you can catch us on all of our content that goes on throughout the week. So yeah, please just check us out. We've got stuff, on and popping because we are the Avengers of women's wrestling and media. So until next time, this is Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. We will be back next Thursday, but we will only be talking about NXT 2.0. There'll be no more NXT UK, but we will be back. So until next time, bye y'all.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.